Welcome, and thank you for joining us today. I am Sam Aldrich, a planner with the Department of State, and I'll be taking you through today's webinar. So the webinar will cover the New York State Downtown Revitalization Initiative Round 8, as well as the New York Forward Round 3 application. We'll review the application requirements and evaluation criteria for both of the programs, as well as hold time at the end of the webinar for questions. But throughout the webinar duration, please feel to enter your questions in the chat as we move along, and we can get to those at the end. The agenda for today's webinar includes a review of the DRI and New York Forward programs, as well as the program eligibility requirements. And during today's webinar, you'll also get helpful hints on how to develop your community's application and submit a complete application for consideration by your respective Regional Economic Development Council. So let's go through the DRI and New York Forward programs themselves. This funding opportunity, which was announced by Governor Kathy Hochul, marks the 8th round of the DRI and the 3rd round of New York Forward. These programs will provide $100 million each to communities across New York State. And DRI will invest $10 million in one community in each of the REDC regions, whereas New York Forward will invest in 2 communities for each of the REDC regions, each with a $4.5 million award. This year is a little bit different in that the New York City region will not be awarded New York Forward funding, but instead will receive one $20 million DRI award. The DRI and New York Forward program goals are really similar in that they strive to create active downtowns that are vibrant, have a robust mix of uses, and support a diverse population. And the DRI focuses more on dense downtowns, while the New York Forward program targets small scale or rural downtowns. And in order to achieve this, both programs really do intend to create vitality in neighborhoods that attract businesses and investment to grow the local tax base, support diverse populations through housing opportunities, amenities, while also creating unique, vibrant spaces that are welcoming to all. And ensure while we are doing all of those things, we're thinking about the long-term sustainability of our communities through the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions and just overall resiliency strategies as a whole. The DRI was launched in 2016, and this was really to accelerate the revitalization of downtown in each of the 10 REDC regions across the state. The purpose of the program, again, is just to create healthy, vibrant areas that provide residents and visitors a 24/7, 4-season opportunity while focusing on the development or redevelopment of properties for business growth, economic and housing diversity, and job creation. And not only is the DRI focused on these individual downtowns, but it's also intended to reinvigorate the larger regional economies as well. So in the application packet, we included a list of characteristics that a DRI may have, and really taking into consideration that recognizing each of the state's downtowns and regions are unique, and not everyone is reflected in these descriptions per se. But generally, DRI communities are larger than a New York Forward community. They are also commonly walkable, have dense centers that serve the regional economy. So they have the types of amenities, whether those are open spaces, special events, programming, business centers, or job nodes that are attractive and bring people in from the larger surrounding area. Typically, they have multimodal transportation options, including public transport, as well as options for vehicular, pedestrian, and bicycle users. They can be the employment center for the regional economy. They offer amenities and destinations that help them to serve as a tourism node or center within the larger region. They allow for higher density development, and there is existing potential for multi-story buildings, including opportunities for upper story housing. Just to reiterate again, the $10 million award will be allocated to each region, with the caveat that New York City this round is receiving one $20 million award. And this will be awarded to either one community or a joint application of 2 to 3 smaller contiguous communities with a single unified revitalization vision. So a joint application can contain 2 to 3 downtowns that complement and support one another while facilitating synergistic transformation of each of those communities. Out of the $10 million award that is given, an initial $300,000 is used to pay for professional consulting services that are applied in the planning phase of the process. So this $300,000 investment results in the development of what we call a strategic investment plan, and we'll discuss that a little bit further on in the webinar. From there, applications are then submitted to the appropriate REDC region, and they nominate a community for DRI funding. One of the application requirements is identifying potential projects in your community. So in DRI communities, these can be typically larger private mixed-use projects, and they may include both new development as well as adaptive reuse of existing buildings. They could also include projects that elevate the urban downtown character and enhance the regional draw to the DRI area. So public sector projects we have seen include streetscapes, those that improve public spaces or creating new public spaces. Other projects that may be eligible include the development of design guidelines, wayfinding projects, marketing strategies, again, just all with the goal of helping to facilitate investment and interest in the downtown area. Applicants should also demonstrate that the area is able to invest more than the $10 million in funding with shovel-ready projects and opportunities to utilize that full award. So switching gears to the New York Forward program. This program was first announced in 2022. It's specifically intended to invest in New York's smaller and rural communities. So thinking about smaller hamlets, villages, neighborhood scale municipal centers, as opposed to the DRI, which is focused on more larger downtown cores. The overall goals of the program are consistent, again, with the intent to attract more businesses, retain residents, attract visitors, and also provide a higher quality of life for residents. The community characteristics of a New York Forward community, again, generally they may fall into these descriptions, but recognizing that each community and region are very unique, it might not be fully captured here. But generally, a New York Forward community has a boundary that's similar to a DRI in that it's walkable, it's concentrated, but the area itself might be less dense than DRI areas. And the focus may be more on serving the needs of the immediate local community versus a larger regional economy. Sometimes these communities will be a bit more vehicular dependent and have more limited public transportation options or potential. New York Forward communities might have community centers that are typically more service oriented and geared toward the local community, but also provide employment and job growth within the area. And then New York Forward communities also have characteristics of what we call small town charm, which represents a unique history, heritage, agriculture, or tourism focus. So you can think smaller communities such as an Erie Canal hamlet or a business improvement district. And then typically the density and scale of these areas include 2 to 4 story buildings that may provide some opportunity for upper story housing as well. In the REDCs in each region will nominate 2 communities, each to receive a $4.5 million award. Again, not including the New York City region. And unlike DRI, the costs related to technical assistance and the development of the strategic investment plan will not be deducted from this $4.5 million award. Similar to the DRI, however, potential projects could include renovation, redevelopment, and adaptive reuse of existing buildings, which tend to be the focus in New York Forward communities over new construction. So these projects should focus primarily on addressing vacancy and rehabilitation of existing structures. However, some new construction or the creation of new spaces in those buildings may also be included and considered if it makes sense. Because of the emphasis on leveraging and protecting small town charm and character associated with New York Forward communities, projects that really focus on elevating specific cultural, architectural, and historical qualities of those communities should be considered here as well. You could consider signage, historic markers, wayfinding elements that contribute to focusing on investment and celebrating the characteristics of a community may also be desirable. And then important here is that applicants should be able to demonstrate $6 to $8 million worth of New York Forward funds for projects, and these projects should be ready to be implemented in the short term. All right, so now that we have an understanding of each of the programs, we're now going to walk through the application itself. In this point, it could be helpful for you to have the application in front of you. It's available, if it's available, but don't worry if it's not. But the full application package can be found on the state's DRI and New York Forward websites. And the websites are also included at the end of the presentation as well. But overall, what you need to know about the application is that it includes 7 sections, which we'll walk through and talk about how they relate to the steps required for the submission of an application. The first section of the application talks about key resources and deadlines, which we will go through. The second section provides an overview of both the DRI and New York Forward programs. And the goal of the section is to help you decide which program might be the best fit for your community. So want you to think a little bit more about the community characteristics that we went through and the types of projects that are desirable and eligible within each of those programs. And then you can decide from there which program might be the best fit. The third section covers the intent to apply. All letters of intent, which we will go through too, are due by September 6th. Section 4 covers application tips and best practices, including resources and ideas to help you build a strong application. Section 5 talks about evaluation criteria and provides an understanding of what the REDCs are looking for as they review applications that come in for each of the regions. The 6th section provides the required application components. We'll also discuss each of these sections and provide applicants with tips on what information to include in each of those sections. And then lastly, section 7 includes an overview of the submission requirements, how to submit your application and make sure it's on time and in the correct format. So talking about program eligibility and process. An important first question that we often see is who can apply to the New York Forward and DRI programs. Both of these programs are open to any New York State town, city, or village. So although municipalities are permitted to apply for both of the programs, we really do urge you to determine which program might be the best fit. And again, please refer back to the community characteristics and project eligibility to help make that determination. Counties, special districts, such as fire districts, are not eligible to apply. However, many other agencies and organizations can be really great partners to include within the process overall. So while counties and special districts cannot be the primary applicant, they can certainly be important stakeholders and collaborators for a municipality through this process. For DRI Round 8, joint applications will be accepted for 2 to 3 downtowns in the same REDC region with shared vision and goals. And these communities and boundaries must also be contiguous. The New York Forward program does not permit joint applications this round. Also, something worth noting is that municipalities that received a DRI award previously in rounds 1 through 7 are eligible to apply. But we just ask that those areas be different than the area that was previously awarded. For the New York City boroughs, the eligibility and process are just slightly different. So for communities in New York City applying to either of the programs, this will be a two-step process. So official applicants will be the Office of the Borough President. Organizations that are interested in proposing an area for DRI should submit their application to their respective borough president's office. After the applications are submitted to the borough president, each of the borough presidents will develop and submit up to 2 applications for DRI round 8 for consideration by the RADC in New York City. As a reminder, all the email addresses for the borough president's office staff are found in the DRI New York Forward application package. So there is a new requirement this round regarding pro-housing community certification. So prior to submitting an application for DRI or New York Forward, cities, towns, and villages must have either submitted a letter of intent or already be certified by the Office of Homes and Community Renewal as a pro-housing community. Then from there, prior to award announcement, all communities must be certified as a pro-housing community before those awards are made. So this can be a bit complicated, but we do have more information on the pro-housing certification process, and we'll be having a separate presentation on August 22nd related to how that process works and what you need to do in order to submit your intent to apply, as well as apply for certification. So a link to the registration page for this opportunity will be just in a few slides from now. Okay, one of the questions we've also heard is, can you apply to both the DRI and New York Forward programs? And that answer is yes. And while you may choose to submit one area for both programs, again, we just consider that we encourage that you consider carefully right-sizing your applications to the different programs. So communities looking to apply to both programs will need to submit 2 applications. So one will be under the DRI CFA portal, and one will also be under the New York Forward CFA portal. And so this is an example of what you would see when starting an application in the CFA portal itself. You'll have to click either or both of those programs. And if you aren't familiar with the CFA portal process, we do suggest reviewing the CFA portal guide, and we also included a link to that at the end of this presentation that you may reference. Okay, so here's the general schedule for application and announcement for both programs. So the current round of DRI and New York Forward officially kicked off with the release of this application on August 6th. The intent to apply is due by September 6th, and this is important to be able to receive one-on-one technical assistance if you would like to go that route. Submittals for New York City only will be due on October 4th, and these will be submitted electronically to the relevant borough president's office. And then for all other applicants outside of New York City, the deadline for applications is Friday, October 18th. And this includes both the DRI and New York Forward programs. And these will again be submitted through New York State CFA portal. From there, we are anticipating that awards will be announced on a rolling basis, similar to how they've been announced in past rounds of the DRI and New York Forward program, late 2024, early 2025. And then the planning process is anticipated to begin in spring 2025. Okay, so talking a little bit about the one-on-one technical assistance. So we are providing this to both program applicants if desired. And this will consist of office hours with technical experts that have expertise in both of the programs. So you are guaranteed access to these office hours if you submit an intent to apply on or before September 6th. If your letter of intent is received after the 6th, you are not guaranteed access to the office hours, but we will make every effort to ensure that you still have the opportunity to participate. This intent to apply can be found in the application package. There's a link in that application package, which you can click on. It will bring up a Microsoft form, and you'll be able to fill that out and submit pretty easily. Once you submit this letter of intent, you will receive a link to register for those office hours, and that will be extended through the month of September. The Department of State has partnered with the Land Use Law Center of Pace University, and these have provided a series of webinars, which really are intended to help communities not only think about how they approach the application for DRI or New York Forward funding, but also just more generally think about how they're approaching future revitalization planning for their communities. All of these webinars were previously recorded and can be found at the below link. And we highly encourage all applicants to view these webinars for context and reference. We also have 2 upcoming webinars that you can register for. One is being held next week, August 22nd. This is specifically related to the pro-housing community certification process. And then one on August 29th that speaks to how to create strong projects to revitalize your downtowns. All of these webinars, both the previously recorded ones and the future ones that are coming up in the next couple of weeks, can be found at the below link. So please go to that link. They can also be found on the DRI website as well. And here, just a snapshot of all of the contact information for each of the RADCs is provided here, as well as within the application package itself. So if you have any questions outside of this webinar as you're going through the application, you can always reach out to each of the RADC regions and get your questions answered there as well. Okay, so moving on to part 3 and how to approach your application development. Wanted to talk first about traits of a strong application. So first and foremost, we want to make sure that everyone is meeting all of the minimum program requirements. So this includes all of the content that's requested in the application, and then making sure that the information presented is complete, concise, and thoughtfully crafted. A strong application is informed by robust community engagement, and we'll talk a little bit more about what this may look like in a few moments, but community engagement should really inform the creation of a community-based vision for the downtown, and any projects that are identified should support and be well aligned to that community vision. We're looking for projects that are ready and projects that are feasible and have been identified in coordination with property owners, potential project sponsors. All of these really imperative to a successful application. The identified projects that you present should also have a holistic approach to revitalization, and it works best when projects play off one another and work together to spur change. So this is just a snapshot of the application checklist. So there are 10 components that must be included within the application, as well as 1 optional element. So again, we just want to reiterate how important it is to make sure that all of these elements are addressed in your application package. The 10 required components include the cover page, an identification and justification of a proposed boundary, a draft vision statement, a summary of past investment and future potential, a summary of recent and impending job growth, a description of quality of life characteristics, a narrative related to supportive local policies that may already be in place within your community, a description of public support of your application, identification of transformative project opportunities, and then the ability to administer the DRI or New York Forward program. And this is both related to the planning as well as the implementation phase. Lastly, letters of support are an optional element within the application package, but we really do strongly encourage these to show support and partnerships between various entities. So let's walk through each of these application components. Okay, so the application is very clear on what information needs to be covered and included on the cover page itself. So please include the name of the REDC region in which your community is located. Include the program or programs in which you are applying to, the name of your municipality, the name of your downtown area, the name of the county in which your community is located, the primary contact for your application, which is the person that the REDC and Department of States can reach out to regarding your application. And then new this year, again, please include your community's pro-housing certifications status. So this would include whether your community is currently certified or the date of the application for when that certification application was submitted. And then related to a joint DRI application, if you are submitting one of those, please ensure to include all the municipality names as well as the downtown names on the cover page. With regards to the project boundary, so applicants must include a map that shows the proposed area that they're recommending for DRI or New York Forward. And it's worth noting that this boundary does have some flexibility throughout the planning process and could be slightly modified if there have been changes from the application point to the start of the planning process. So don't get too hung up on, every nook and cranny of the boundary. But these areas can generally range from a corridor to a few blocks of a neighborhood to the entirety of a downtown traditional central business district. There are no absolute minimum or maximum sizes of a boundary, but generally a strong and successful boundary would be concentrated and should be easily walkable. Additionally, boundaries to the greatest extent possible should follow parcel lines or roadways, anything that can show clean breaks between boundary lines and parcel lines. In addition to including a map and a description of the proposed boundary, applicants should also provide a short narrative describing how investment within the concentrated area will help to catalyze new investment and revitalization. So when you're going to submit the application as well, a separate map file will also need to be uploaded into the CFA portal in addition to the application package. And if you're submitting a joint DRI application, it would be helpful to show municipal boundaries as well. Here are just a few examples of DRI and New York Forward boundaries from past rounds. These are really to help provide some context and comparison. So on the left-hand side of the screen, we have the Seneca Falls DRI boundary, which is 118 acres in size and encompasses both sides of the canal it straddles. So one important thing to note here is while it does include both sides of the canal, the DRI area itself, all of those areas are within the 10-minute walking distance. Next, we have the Fulton DRI boundary, and this is a little bit larger in scale at 185 acres. And although it is larger and more elongated, the boundary is cohesive as their downtown is more linear in shape and it does follow the waterfront. And then lastly, we have the Lancaster, New York Forward boundaries. This is a little bit more compact, 97 acres, but all really focused and centered on their downtown core. Ultimately, the boundary should reflect the unique characteristics of your downtown area and just be justifiable in how it relates all together. So please make sure to show the boundaries clearly, to make sure they're clearly identified on a map for reviewers to review. Okay, so a vision statement is really critical to setting the direction for DRI and New York Forward. It's important to have a vision statement that's identified and developed based on the information gathered from community outreach. So a vision statement should not be something that's put together by one person sitting in an office, but should really be based on what the community wants to see. A vision statement should reflect the unique nature of the downtown or the neighborhood that's being proposed, as well as the long-term aspirations of that community. So thinking ahead, not just what the community is today, but what the community aspires to be in 3, 5, maybe 10 years down the road from now. Ultimately, we want to make sure that any potential projects that are proposed are able to clearly relate back and reinforce the vision statement as well. So here, just wanted to include some examples of DRI and New York Forward vision statements. And these examples are from Ticonderoga, Newark, and Sleepy Hollow. And while I'm not asking you to read these word by word, I think you can see just by perusing them, each of these vision statements are really focused on different elements that are important to their own downtown areas. They are not easily transferable to one community or the other, and they really speak to the needs and desires of residents and include descriptive language and unique characteristics and community assets specific to those particular communities. Okay, so component 4 is related to recent investments and future potential of the DRI and New York Forward area. So this should detail recent investments around the area to demonstrate that your area is ready to capitalize on prior public and private investment, as well as catalyze future investments to transform that downtown area further. So this section of the application should summarize those past investments. Maybe there were streetscape improvement projects and improvements to parks and recreational areas, new attractions or businesses or other developments that have been made in the area over the past few years. But also thinking about and touching on the readiness of the area to accommodate new projects and programs that might emerge out of this process. So here we just have a few questions that the narrative can answer related to past investments and future potential of the area. So thinking about whether or not the past investments are consistent with the REDC priorities or smart growth principles. Are there properties that are currently vacant and in need of rehab? Is there the infrastructure existing within your DRI or New York Forward area to support new development? Are there anchor institutions in place that can act as important partners and collaborators to facilitate growth? Has municipal investment and commitment been made in the downtown? And this could be either through public dollars or through the oversight and facilitation of grants by the municipality. Is there an opportunity to develop energy efficient projects or create new green jobs? And lastly, is there an attractive investment in arts and culture in the community? Okay, for recent or impending job growth, applicants should highlight the availability of jobs and job growth within or near the downtown. So thinking about, have there been any new projects either within the past 5 years or any planned or upcoming projects that will help to create new jobs? Are there existing companies that are expanding or new companies coming into your community that will help create new jobs and workforce? And if so, tell that job growth and whether or not it will help to attract a diverse workforce, support planned redevelopment efforts, and also make growth sustainable in the future. The application also asks applicants to identify the potential for the area to become an attractive and livable community for diverse populations. So really thinking about how your community can support residents and visitors of all ages, abilities, incomes, cultural backgrounds, and how that impacts the overall quality of life. So in this section, you may focus on developing a narrative that talks about opportunities in your community for housing, maybe that's existing or proposed, and how that housing can fill gaps and ensure that there's housing available at different levels of affordability and type. You can also think about how commercial and retail businesses are being supported both today and envisioned for the future, and discuss how the downtown can support a variety of food options and choices, particularly emphasizing the availability of healthy food options for all residents. Applicants may identify opportunities for decarbonization of buildings and opportunities to integrate renewable energy and more energy efficient building elements into their design. And then describe how walkability, bikeability, and multimodal transportation improvements can or will be made to reduce reliance on automobiles and just improve mobility overall. Is there access to recreational amenities and healthcare facilities, things like that? And then lastly, it would be helpful to discuss how the downtown will provide or support community gathering spaces, special events and programming, and access to academic, cultural, and entertainment amenities. Applications will also be assessed on whether the community has other supportive local policies in place. And these may be policies that are already in place or that are in the process of being developed as well. So this section should identify other planning documents that are inclusive of the DRI New York Forward area. So it could be something like a comprehensive plan, a downtown master plan, economic development strategy, as just a few examples of those. Look at modern zoning codes and zoning updates, particularly those that have a focus on sustainability. Please note these in your application if you've done any updates on zoning codes in the past few months or years. Please note if you have adopted the New York Stretch Energy Code, or if it's been designated as a clean energy community or climate smart community. If you have a downtown management entity, such as a business improvement district or local land bank, these organizations can be helpful to sustaining and implementing DRI or New York Forward projects, and please identify those for the REDC to consider. Note if you have transit-oriented development policies or complete streets policies, or any non-discrimination laws or protections of diverse populations. And then, overall, these are just a sample list of the policies and plans that could be noted and identified in the application to show your community's commitment of meeting the goals of the New York Forward program, as well as DRI program. Okay, talking about public support. So as previously mentioned, public support and feedback is a critical component of the overall DRI New York Forward process. We ask that applicants hold at least one public event during the development of the application. So that would be between now and October. However, this is the bare minimum. The one community event is the bare minimum of the community outreach that is encouraged. In addition to that one community event, in past years, communities have done open calls for project proposals to solicit ideas from property owners or other community members about which projects they feel would be most transformative in their downtown. And other communities have developed a project website to ensure that there's full transparency with regards to the process overall, as well as a means to accept and exchange information. As we're kind of approaching the end of summer, we know that a lot of communities are also holding special events and programs, and that may be a great opportunity and time to reach a larger audience that you normally wouldn't have through a traditional public workshop. You can think about setting up a table at an existing special event. You can present in a standing community meeting, all ways that are more unique in gathering community feedback on your application. And then in addition to the public outreach as part of this section, please also note in the application if there were any other recent or ongoing initiatives, such as the creation of a complete streets plan or update to a comprehensive plan that included broader visioning. That feedback and those engagement activities could be summarized and displayed in the application as well. Okay, so transformative project opportunities. So municipalities are required to identify a range of transformative projects that are ready and poised for implementation. These projects may be public, private, nonprofit, but should also align to the community's vision and the state's goals. Typically, a transformative project should be publicly supported and vetted as that public outreach process that we just discussed. But they also should demonstrate benefits to the broader community, not just that individual project sponsor, or property owner. Projects should be ready for implementation within the next few years. So other resources that may be needed or other pre-development work that may be required prior to implementing the project should be able to be completed within the next few years. Projects should leverage other sources of funding to the greatest extent possible. So it would be ideal that DRI or New York Forward funding is not the only funding source identified for a private sector project, for example. DRI and New York Forward funding is really intended to fill the gap in financing to make a project feasible and get it over the line and make it successful. And then ultimately, the project sponsor must have the ability to implement the project and sustain that proposed project after funding is awarded. We do have, again, a specific webinar related to how to develop projects that are intended to revitalize your downtown and develop strong projects. So tune into the webinar on August 29th, specifically on that topic. And again, that link to the webinar registration page is shown at right. Okay, the last required component of the application is related to administrative capacity. Administrative capacity of the applicant and the municipality is really important. And this isn't only important in the planning process to help manage that plan, but also to assist with the implementation of projects that may be awarded funding. So we ask that the narrative provide an explanation of how existing municipal staff and resources will be utilized to oversee that planning process, as well as the contracts for the awarded projects themselves, and how the community will approach operations and maintenance of any municipal projects that may be constructed should also be noted in this section. In this section, you can also reference and highlight key potential partners to support the community in administering the grant and project implementation. Sometimes we have seen that potential partners that are really helpful could include counties, regional planning commissions, IDAs, local development corporations, etc. So don't just think about who is existing in your existing immediate staff, but other resources and organizations that you can tap into. And then lastly, letters of support are optional, but we certainly encourage and recommend them as part of the application to show commitment of your local leaders, your partners, stakeholders, and other organizations in the community that may be a part of implementing a DRI or New York Forward. And these letters of support should really focus on how the funding can help advance the community's vision, how that partner or stakeholder writing the letter of support might participate in the planning process and help ensure its success, and how they might be involved in supporting implementation projects if they are funded. Okay, so that kind of wraps up the components of the application. Now let's talk about how we submit an application. So just a few general requirements, and just want to make sure that they're clear and nobody misses anything that's critically important to submitting an application. But in addition to double checking the application checklist and ensuring that you're including all of the 10 required components of the application, as well as the letters of support, we want to ensure that the applications are limited to 20 pages, including any maps or graphics. This does not include the cover page or any letters of support that you decide to include. That doesn't count towards the 20 pages. That's just the actual meat of the application. All applicants must be submitted as a single PDF document that is 30 megabytes or smaller in size. And these will all need to be uploaded to the CFA portal for both the DRI and the New York Forward. In addition to the application package, PDF, will also ask that you submit a standalone map of your DRI or New York Forward boundary into the PDF as well. So again, here are the 11 components of the application, 10 of them being required. And just don't forget, again, this year, since it is a new requirement, just indicating on the cover page what the status of your pro-housing certification might be. And then just kind of wrapping up with application deadlines. In New York City, all applications must be submitted via email to the Office of the Borough President no later than 4 p.m. on Friday, October 4th. And then for all other regions, applications must be uploaded and submitted to the CFA portal no later than 4 p.m. on Friday, October 18th. Again, if you're interested in the one-on-one technical assistance that is being provided now through the end of September, please don't forget to submit your letters of intent that are due on September 6th. Again, just a overview of the submission requirements. And then there's also a link to the CFA portal on the screen as well. Just to wrap up, a reminder that there's a wealth of information and resources, links to the capacity building webinars, information on other successful DRI projects, links to other successful applications, all located on both the DRI and New York Forward website pages. Those links are listed here at the top of the screen. And then for those that aren't as familiar with the CFA portal, we do have the CFA portal guide. It provides helpful information on how to access the portal, how to set up your application and upload and submit that application to the REDC. We will also be posting this webinar on the DRI and New York Forward pages as well, so you can check back here for all of the links that were provided. Again, thank you so much for listening and best of luck for you developing your application. Also wanted to take a few minutes, maybe about 15 minutes, to answer any questions you have. So we can do that now. And if you have them, please submit them in the chat box.
Thanks, Sam. There's been a couple of questions that have come in since the beginning that we have responded to, but in case people didn't see or have the same questions, I will just go back and reiterate. One question was, is there any disadvantage to applying to both DRI and New York Forward? Are there any specific minimum or maximum characteristics that would indicate which program to go for? As Sam had indicated earlier in the webinar, there are different characteristics for a DRI and a New York Forward community. We would suggest that you really evaluate those characteristics and see what program would be a better fit for your application. One serious thing to consider is when you are identifying proposed projects and what that total number is, would give you a high indication of what program you might fit best into. You clearly can apply for both DRI and New York Forward. We would suggest that you do reach out to our consultants through the intent to apply application to give you way more information and kind of review your applications and help you gear towards what might be a better fit. Another question was, will the slides be available for review? Yes, we will be putting up these slides as well as the recording of this webinar on our capacity website, which we did include a link. We were also asked if there are links or attachments of past recipients awarded proposals available. All information, again, as Sam has said, are on both our DRI and our New York Forward web pages. Through there, you can see all previously awarded communities from DRI 1 through 6 that will show their strategic investment plans. And most recently, you can see DRI 7 and New York Forward 2 communities and their applications that they submitted. Those are also helpful in order when you are looking at kind of steering your application and be helpful in answering some questions. So I would suggest that you check those out on our website as well. We also had a question about the intent to apply, and I did put in a link directly into the chat, but that again is also on both our DRI and our New York Forward website, as well as within the application, there is a link for that. Let me see what else came in. One other question was, are there also narrative type questions in the CFA portal, or are we just attaching the PDFs, which would be the proposal and map? So if you go to the CFA portal, it is just going to ask you to put in your pertinent information and then upload your application and a map. You will have to go to our website. There's also a link in the CFA portal back to our application where all of that information that Sam went through is there of what we need to see in every application, what the requirements are. You will generate that, create a PDF, and then put that into the CFA portal just as an upload. Another question was, can you provide an example for modern zoning codes that focus on sustainabilities? We don't have anything on our website that would showcase that, but we do have a lot of communities that are going through the process with our smart growth grants, and we can show some examples through the CFA portal and what we're looking for in terms of requirements and the makeup of comprehensive plan zoning updates. So that would be included in the CFA, which is now closed, but is a great example to see what the makeup of those codes are or those comprehensive plans. And I would use that as a resource to look through.
Yeah, in addition to that, Amanda, I would say like any sort of zoning code that focuses on maybe green infrastructure or stormwater mitigation, anything to do with renewable energy, reducing parking minimums, form-based codes, all of those could be examples of more zoning codes that focus on sustainability and resiliency too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Sam.
Mm-hmm.
Another question was asking about if multiple municipalities could apply for New York Forward together. If multiple municipalities are going to apply, we would suggest that you look at the Downtown Revitalization Initiative as the application that you submit. With New York Forward being a smaller amount at 4.5 million, it's a lot harder to disperse that amount of money between multiple municipalities. So we would suggest that you look at the requirements for DRI and see if that's a fit for municipalities that are looking to combine 2 or 3 communities together for an application. We have a lot more asking about this presentation, and yes, it will be up on our website on the capacity building page. Another question is the vision statement required for the intent to apply? No, it is not required for the intent to apply. The intent to apply just asks for basic information such as your municipality, what do you plan on applying for, who's the best contact. That way the consultants, if you would like technical assistance, can reach out to you and help garner your application and answer questions for you. But the vision statement is not required in that. It's more of just either you putting in your intent that you do intend to apply for either or both programs, and if you would like technical assistance. So another question on the letter of intent was, is there a way to see all of the letter of intent questions without completing it? Unfortunately, there is not, but it is a very short questionnaire. Again, it asks pertinent information about the community, where in the REDC you are, which REDC you are a part of, contact information, and again, if you have an idea of what program you are most interested in. But it should at minimum take 3 minutes to complete that. Another question is, if our projects are in the early stages, how do you recommend we estimate a budget/budget breakdown? That's a very good question. We've had communities identify projects through previous plans where they might have a more thorough budget or analysis done. If you are just in the preliminary stages of identifying a project and might not know where to start, you could always reach out to consulting firms or look internally through your departments to see if there's a way they can estimate budgets and a breakdown of a project based on previous projects that the community has established. You could also look at some of the other applications that communities have put in to kind of see what the average ask is for specific project types. I don't know, Sam, if you have any other more particular suggestions when it comes to budgets and budget breakdowns.
No, I thought that was a good response.
Okay.
Thanks, Mandy.
Yeah. So again, as Sam had said, our websites have a litany of information. This is the 8th round of DRI and the 3rd round of New York Forward. So there are a lot of materials from previous awarded communities. There are a lot of webinars and information and FAQs on our website. And we can't say it enough that the technical assistance has helped many communities in the past get over that threshold and become awarded communities. And we would really suggest that you take advantage of that, especially if you are an applicant that is new to this and have a lot of information that needs some assistance with, or even if you're a community that has applied multiple times and it's just great to get another set of eyes on your application and see how you can bolster that. One last question I see is, would a short video be something that could be submitted as part of an application or be helpful to have if a municipality is chosen for a presentation to a regional ESD office? I've heard of a municipality producing a video as part of their submission in a previous DRI round. So that is all dependent on the specific REDCs. All 10 of our REDCs handle the application process separately. As Sam had mentioned, and it's in our application, they are the ones submitting a chosen community, and their process could be varied. I know some REDCs choose to do interviews, some ask for videos. So you would have to coordinate and reach out to your individual REDC to see what that requirement would be as part of the application process. And I think that was the last question we had. But again, multiple resources, multiple people to reach out to, and ways to reach out to have questions answered after this if something pops up. And please be wary of the deadlines that we have, as it is through the CFA portal. So at 4 p.m. on the dot, those applications will close. So make sure that you are aware of the portal. And again, please reach out to any of the resources if you have any questions.
And just a reminder too, the link for the page for capacity building webinars, where this webinar will be posted, as well as all the other ones we have and upcoming ones, is located on the bottom of the screen as well. If you want to write that down, it's also in the application package for your reference too. Okay. All right. Thank you all so much for joining, and good luck on putting together your applications. Have a good day.